What was your story? How did it start?
Story, yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to become a journalist, honestly. I wanted to do something in Formula One, and that was probably the easiest job of all.
So you were
I would be too slow as a driver, not good enough as an engineer, and maybe not clever enough as a team principal, I don't know.
So you started as a Formula One fan?
Yes, as a Formula One fan.
Now, how old were you?
11. It was the British Grand Prix 1970.
The British Grand Prix?
Yeah, I was a huge soccer fan, in 1970. Brazil might remember, you became World Cup winner.
Mexico.
In Mexico, exactly. And I liked when that was on the program in Germany. We didn't have a live broadcast of Formula One because Germany, they didn't have a driver at the time. And you saw sometimes the highlights. I always liked it, but I never could imagine that I watch a race for 2 hours. So then, I don't know why, there was this, the British Grand Prix was live on Austrian TV, which I could see because we were living near Munich. So in the south of Germany, you could see Austrian TV. And for Austria, that was the big summer fairy tale, Jochen Rindt leading the championship, and they had all races live. So I watched this race, and it was a very particular race because the big opponent of Jochen was Jack Brabham. And Jochen, he looked like a pop star. He was smoking, and Jack Brabham looked like an accountant, not like a racing driver. And me, as a boy, you took party, obviously, of the guy who thought has the worst cars, because and Rindt was in the best car as well, which you could see even as an outsider. The Lotus 72 was completely different to all the other cars. So anyway, I kept my fingers crossed for Jack Brabham, and the guy on Austrian TV already told before that in Monte Carlo, Brabham lost the win in the last corner of the last lap. So I don't know when, 20 laps before the end, Brabham went away, and it was easy to win this Grand Prix. 2 corners before the end, I thought it's slow motion. All of a sudden, Jack Brabham is slow, and he was running out of fuel. And Rindt really on the last few meters overtook him and won the Grand Prix. And although I was a bit angry, I thought, what a sport this is, because you can't tell until the end of the race that it's over. And that really, from that day onwards, I was Formula One fan. And then the journalism came later. As I said, I had some friends who were journalists, and when I started to go to races, which was...
So your first race was the British Grand Prix?
No, on television.
On television, okay.
That was television only. The first time I was at track was in 76 in Monza, because my father had to do something there close, and I really was urging him, come on, Monza is very close, we have a look there. And then I went there, and that was the race when Niki came back after his accident.
What a race to go to for your first one.
No, we were only on Friday in practice, because my father we had to go home then. And I remember it was really raining like hell.
And how old were you?
At that time, I was 17. So we were sitting on the main grandstand, and the first practice, nothing happened. Nobody went out. Only in the last 2 minutes, I think, Rolf Stommelen was the first driver I've ever saw in a Brabham Alfa Romeo, running down this main straight with an incredible speed. You could see the spray for kilometers, and that was already crazy. And then in the afternoon, everybody was driving. And the one thing I remember, I told this story a few times to Niki, was the pit lane was more or less empty, because everybody was obviously around Ferrari. Everybody wanted to see him. He was...
Regazzoni? Who was it?
No, there was 3 drivers, because it was Niki, Regazzoni, and then Enzo Ferrari, because he thought Niki is finished. He took Reutemann on board. So and all the journalists were standing around, and photographers around this Ferrari pits, and the whole rest was empty. So then drivers were going out. So when James Hunt went out, he was the big rival of Niki. People were booing. Then I think first of the Ferrari drivers was Reutemann. Everybody was cheering. Then Regazzoni. And then in the end, Niki came. First time coming out after the accident. And I thought then the thing would explode. No. Everybody stood up very silently and was giving standing ovations. It was very quiet, and you felt the moment. Everybody felt this is a historic moment. A guy who was 6 weeks before, he was almost dead, going out. And that was my first contact, direct contact. And then, as I said, I went from 77 onwards, I went as a fan, but I had friends who worked in the business, and they asked me, can you write a little story here, or can you do some pictures? Because in the beginning I did pictures as well. And in 81, then I found in Munich a daily newspaper, which took me regularly on board as a freelancer, but they said, okay, we take this. If you find the story interesting, we take it. If not, it's your problem. Then you don't get any money. So
And
that's also-
were your pictures any good?
I doubt so, but I stopped it because I was ran out.
Did you keep them all? You have them?
No, not anymore.
You sold it? Or you threw it
Yeah,
away?
yes, not sold it. I gave it away to somebody who wanted to have it. And I stopped it actually because in '82 I was ran over 3 times almost ran over by a car 3 times.
By Formula 1 cars?
No, because I did also at the time Formula 2 touring cars, sports cars. And the first one was a big crash in Truxton, Formula 2 race. At
Truxton,
Easter Monday,
Jesus.
probably.
yeah. At the start, and we were standing just on a bank. And there was a big mess somewhere in the field, and Thierry Tassin, I don't know whether you heard
absolutely.
it. He was hit by somebody and he crashed.
Belgium driver.
Yeah, he crashed just in front of us. The car was broken in half, and we just jumped on the other side of the bank. And when we came back, there was a rear suspension on this bank, and we saw how close it was. The next one was then on the Nürburgring, 1,000 kilometers race, and there was a guy in the midfield. And normally, a 1,000 kilometers race, it was a flying start. You wouldn't think that the people risk anything, but there was a German driver in a shitty car. They had a problem with the brake balance, and we were standing there, focusing the field, coming close to you, and I could see that and it was the old Nürburgring, with the 2 long straights. Then there was this south corner, and then there were 2 parallel straights, and you were in the grass completely unprotected. Of course, before you thought, what would you do if somebody comes? And the only chance was to run behind that guardrail, which was separating the 2 straights. So the last thing I saw was a red car in the middle of the field, sideways, crashing into this barrier. And then I took one picture which was out of focus because obviously I was already running. And then I just remember I saw it with one eye that this car was coming so quickly towards me. And I just made it. And 6 people were hit, 3 of them really badly injured. So 6 photographers. There was a real mess there. And there was a guy who was doing pictures of this scene. And he sent me later on one picture. And when you see the picture, you would say 100% he must have been hit. The car was just in front of me and I just made it. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the next thing was René Arnoux losing in Tarzan corner the front wheel. And he was coming towards us. Again, we all laid down. And then he was going into the tire stack and taking all the gravel with him. And once he stopped, all the gravel went up in the air. And there was a big advertising board. And the gravel went on the board and then it rained down on us. That's the only thing I remembered. And when I stood up, this car was really in front of us in the middle of the tires, and I had the wrong lens, much too long. And I was so pissed off because by the time I changed the lens, Arnoux was already out of the car.
Like the cameraman.
And then I said 3 times, that's too much.
Like the cameraman in Mexico racing, the start and the crash was so close.
Exactly, yeah.